life living and making a living can sometimes wear us out, grind us down, and dull our senses. So for a keen mind and a sharp contributive edge that can make it all easier and better and more productive, let's take some time to sharpen our axe. Stay with us right now for Life Talk.
Hello, I'm Gina Fitt, and you've either surfed to or purposely selected Life Talk with Vern Moses. Welcome to another in our series of ongoing verbal essays brought to you in this television format. It's really a pleasure to have you with us this week as we explore more ideas and thoughts from our readers, our listeners, and, well, I guess the readers, because we send out great material and we have some people call in and ask for your bookmarks and your posters, and they get tickets to shows and come and see you live, and changes their lives. And then they come back, they call back sometimes or write to us, and they have questions and they have challenges and things that are keeping them from progressing in their lives and having what they want in their lives. And one of the most challenging things we seem to face is other people. You know, and there's this unconscious desire or belief somehow that we can control other people or manipulate them or make them do something. If we just knew how, we could get them to do what we wanted or needed them to do. And I think that incredible frustration comes from that. Frustration in our marriages, with our parents and children, with friends, in business relationships. And we had someone write in and want to know how they can improve those things. What would we say to them? Where do you start?
For people who are manipulating you, and I mean,
well, that could be one. That could be one instance. But just this general tendency of wanting to try to, control other people. Or you feeling control.
I think control is a major problem in our society, and it's a whimsy of the Western mind, according to a Dr. Bennett who wrote about the brain some years ago. We have a series of essays, seminars, some people like to call them, that all 20 hours actually is devoted to assist people in relinquishing control over their lives, every facet of it. And some people just, freak out when you start saying that, because man, they've been trying to get it all their life, and yet they've been frustrated, aggravated, and upset, and in turmoil because they're constantly being reminded that they're not in control, that is.
Right.
And so...
and control seems to be more of a Western concept.
Yes.
Than an Eastern concept.
Whimsy of the Western mind.
Yeah.
Really interesting how that works. We are in command, however, of the direction our life takes. Now, sometimes, if you're confronted with someone who is really irrational, totally inappropriate, unkind, insensitive, you're left with very few options on occasion. You could kill them. That'd be one.
Sometimes we do.
Yeah, and that happens. Or you could escape from their presence, perhaps. Difficult to do when we have jobs to maintain and families to support and what have you. So we can get trapped in those things. A fellow by the name, it's not coming to me. He wrote a book, Love is Letting Go of Fear. Gerald Jampolsky. Dr. Gerald, have you read that book? It's delightful. In there were some case histories that he wrote about where one person was so totally inappropriate to another. And he said, the only chance you've got is to overwhelm them with your love. Overwhelm them. And if you battle them, if you refute them, if you participate with them, there's nowhere to go but up. And he said, the only chance you've got, and it seems impossible. It seems impossible. And yet in some of those case histories, and I always question case histories, because they could be fabricated and expanded, but he said
colored.
He said that in all those cases it worked out pretty well. However, in my life I have seen many, many cases where indeed, just by not participating in the scam, for example, years ago, I had a national sales force, and I had a boxing gym that we were providing for professional fighters in Dallas. And I believe there's a lot about boxing that people misunderstand, but that's another issue. And a father of one of the young men who was working out there for Golden Gloves knew that we were hiring, he called it hiring, young people for the summer work. And I said, no, we're not hiring them. We're recruiting them, and they're independent contractors, but we do coach them and teach them and assist them in their independently established business. And he said, well, yeah, he wouldn't listen to that. He wasn't listening. But he said, I'm going to send my kid over and see if you want to give him a job. And I said, okay, send him over. So he did, and he went to one of our branch manager's offices and was recruited, because he's a nice-looking kid. And he came to a couple training classes, and I think maybe went out in the field once or twice, but never did anything. Hung around in the office for a while, and then it got like every other day, then every third day, and pretty soon he wasn't showing up at all. And we figured that's the way it goes for some. I guess it was about 6 months later, his dad filed suit on me and the company for unpaid wages. You know what I mean? And it was just totally inappropriate. I mean, he had to have known better, but anyway, he filed suit for, I believe it was, at that time, $2.75 an hour, and he had like, 70 hours or something. It was about $150, $60. And I ignored it. I was too busy for it, and I just went about my business, because I was traveling at the time. Darn if he didn't get a judgment. Went to small claims court, got a judgment, and I ignored that. I just wasn't going to pay it. I mean, there's no way I was going to do that. And so I ignored that, and then I was filed suit on for a bill of discovery. He was really pressing it. And so rather than messing with it, I said, oh, doggone it. So I just sat down and I wrote a check for twice the amount. Twice the amount. Because I was upset. You know what I mean? I figured the best way I can get it, just get rid of it. And I did what they told me in the scriptures. If you go home and a thief is trying to steal your television, what are you supposed to do?
Give him your bedroom television
and
also.
Say, wait a minute, I've got one upstairs here, perhaps you'd like. And that seems pretty irrational. But anyway, I sent him twice the amount of the check. Never got cashed. It never got cashed. And I never heard another word about it. In other words, once in a while you do this stuff. I've had people, and I've done this myself, where I remember one fellow up in old Grass Valley in California was telling about an ex-brother-in-law who he had loaned $5,000 to. And now, of course, they were divorced, and he wasn't paying it back, but he's bought a boat and, all kinds of progress. And I said, well, what have you done to collect? And he said, well, I've sent him bills, and I've called him, and I've aggravated, and we fought over it, and he just won't pay me any money. I said, well, you need to get rid of the debt, so what I suggest you do is make a bill. Just print up a bill, and then mark it paid in full with love, and just send him the paid in full receipt. He said, you crazy? I said, no. I mean, what's your alternative?
Bye.
What's your alternative? Yeah, be unhappy and aggravated for the rest of your life the way it's going, it sounds like. So anyway, we dropped the subject, and I didn't think he was going to do it, but darned if about, I guess maybe 3 or 4 months later, we had occasion to cross paths, and he said, guess what? I didn't know what he was talking about. He says, I sent that bill marked in full. I said, well, good for you. He said, no, hear me out. Got the money. Yeah, he got the money. The guy couldn't tolerate it. You know, in other words, the fact that he'd sent him this, paid in full with love, it was too painful. I mean, there's something inside of us that knows what's right. And sometimes if you use some of these principles that have been taught for 2,000 years, that are fundamentally ignored, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They may work. But if they don't, at least you're off the hook. And the hook is important to be off. We've got to hold on to our heart. We've got to hold on. Because if we're not careful, greedy people can make us greedy. Hateful people can make us hate. Liars can make us lie. Gee, you get caught up in that mess. And so, and people do change for us occasionally, but never because of us. It's another semantical issue. For example, if you know you're right and you're fussing with this person, and no matter what you say you do, they don't change their patterns. I've been there. And then perhaps later on, you just let it go. You forgive them, you love them, you do everything you can to nurture them and protect them. They may, no promises, they may change for you. People like to bask in someone's love. People really want to be accepted. And if you're just overwhelming them with that, sometimes people will accommodate you.
Well, the thing is, even if they never change, You've
You have,
changed.
yeah, exactly.
Because
You're
you've
above.
grown and you're no longer participating at the level that they're participating at.
Exactly.
You're just gone way on to something bigger and
Yeah,
better.
yeah.
And so it's definitely worth the reward to yourself.
There's a natural tendency, and maybe there's a place for it there somewhere, and that's what the courts have been provided for. And big muscles, maybe, I don't know. But the thing of it is, that doesn't work, but I'm being facetious. But the courts sometimes protect us, but even then, I'll tell you, I've had a lot of people tell me, stay out of court.
Yeah.
You just don't know what's going to happen once you submitted yourself to someone else's judgment. No way of telling it all. And we've seen evidences of that ever since we've been kids,
Well,
trials and
we know
whatnot.
there's a couple of people who benefit from court. Your attorney and my attorney.
Oh, boy. Yeah. It's a good business to be in.
Right.
If it's adversarial. How did we get started? What were we talking about when we started?
We were talking about the challenges that people face in their lives because they're trying to control other people, or they think they can, instead of focusing on, as you just said, yourself. What can you do?
There's a
in
little
these
graph I
circumstances?
do in a thing called the Time Lifeline. In the life formula, it's encased in a moment, which is a great big, like a circle, kind of out here. And we have a selection of words in here that are the life formula. I'm not going to do them tonight. But it's a 10-word verbal icon that once a person memorizes this, they always have a choice where they are about these things. And when they're above the line, which is the love portion up here, is when they're above the line just a little, or maybe a lot, doesn't matter, as opposed to being below the line just a little, or maybe a lot. And once in a while I will say that being above the line has to do with love. Below the line is a fear-based attitude, anxiety, stress, angst, this type of thing. Up here there's contribution. I guess I will throw the words in. It's hard for me not to. Contribution down here is survival. There's no question where we want to be. Up here there's response, moving to someone or something and embracing it, being able to respond to it, as opposed to reacting to it, protecting ourselves against it. Up here, there's adjustment, where you are exercising authority over what's going to be different, as opposed to adapting, surrendering, succumbing, accommodating. Anyway, if you're a little bit above the line, as opposed to a lot, when you're up here, you're in command. Okay? And when you're down here, you think you're in control. And this is a lie. You know what I mean? Painful place to be. Up here, you're objective. You can see, for example, you can see your problem as I see it. And we have the capacity to do that. Most people live subjectively. And that's a painful place. I was subjective all my life. I mean, until probably I was 35, and gradually accumulated this data that allowed me to become objective. And boy, that's a happy place to be. It's easy for me to look at your problems and say, well, this is what you should do. But if I can do that with my problems, can
That's
you
where
see?
the power comes for you.
You betcha.
Yeah.
You betcha. From up here, we call it, what is it? You're conscious, which means that you're able to use the better parts of your mind. Down here, you're functioning subconsciously or unconsciously, and that's dangerous when we live in a socioeconomic world. Tough, tough, tough. And so the whole thing is to kind of get up here and stay up here if we possibly can. And it takes practice. It takes practice. Because we've been accommodating most of our lives. Other people, established conditions, this type of thing. And but it's really funny. We talk in terms sometimes of having a whole room full of people mingling together, each one thinking they're in control. You've got nothing but chaos. But a whole room full of people knowing they're in command, you've got nothing but harmony.
Yeah.
That's why it's worth kind of working at this. Each in command of the direction their life is taking, knowing that they have choices about how they behave and what they do. And I think it's, incredible.
Taking responsibility for yourself.
Totally. But it's got to be everything. It's got to be everything. It's so easy to say, well, it didn't work, or they don't understand, or he doesn't care. And then that's a subjective posturing that you end up always in pain. But taking the responsibility for your life and how you perceive things, the direction you're going to take. And, hey, sometimes it takes a lot of chutzpah. no question about it. But you know there are sometimes you get trapped in circumstances that you cannot influence anymore, with appropriate behavior. We all have, I think, maybe one or two people in our lives that are that way, that no matter what we do, out of their posturing and predisposition about life and the way it works, you can't make headway. So you have to kind of move on. And fortunately, there's a lot of people to move on too. You know what I mean? Like I know I could probably be happily engaged and married to, 30, 40, 50 million women. Not all at once, but because that's a choice that each individual makes, to be happy. And if you're around happy people,
Bern,
pretty easy.
You just sat here and said that's a choice that you make. And it's easy to say it. But I'll bet you there's a lot of people out there who might even be nodding their head in agreement with you and not have a clue about what you're saying at an emotional, subconscious level.
Right.
Either, how to do it or believing that they can really apply it the next time they're faced with a challenge. So how do you get from saying it to living it?
Got to have the right tools. I mean, you have to really understand what's going on inside of our mind, because that's what it's about. Is what's going on up here that gives us that choice, that puts us in a position where we are panicky or posturing or whatever. It's kind of like, it's pretty hard to understand sometimes. I think we were talking about this earlier this evening. It's pretty hard to understand sometimes why someone who is mean, tardy, impatient, unkind, you know what I mean? Rude. It's pretty hard to understand why that's fear on their part. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, well, what are they afraid of? What are they afraid of? They probably couldn't identify it now either, but it's an accumulation of setback and hurt and pain that puts their subconscious mind in a place where it's like a viper just ready to strike any minute in order to survive. And then they just get heartless. You know what I mean? And the solution to that is introducing them to ideas that relieves that. It gives them more peace of mind. I have seen a lot of people make major shifts. We have a fellow, I think I've mentioned, this guy who came to Life Formula one time after having 2 years in therapy for rage. Well, how would you like to be exposed on a regular basis to someone who is subject to irrational, rage, physical rage? It's frightening. It's frightening. But he came to that event with 2 years of therapy, saw the Life Formula, and came out of there and never had an episode since, and that's about 5 years now. And it's just a matter of tools. He didn't know that what was happening, and once he understood it, he was able to manage it, because he was put in command through information. And I think this is the thing that if people could go back and see all the shows we've done, we've been here 2.5 years now, and covered a huge amount of material.
Yeah.
Some of it we've reviewed, but not a lot. But if they could see those shows and be able to put all this together, they know life could be better, happier, more complete, more fruitful. There's little question. We've had a good time doing this. But I'd say of all the things we do, this is the foundation. Understanding the Life Formula, and our subconscious mind, the fact that we're trichotomous. A lot of people have never even heard that. What a tragedy to go through our family environments in kindergarten and grade school and high school and college and what have you, and not understand that we have 3 agendas, and the agenda that should be in command, that should be our social representative, is our conscious mind. Because most people are functioning from their subconscious. When you know it, you can see it every day. Oh, you can see it every day and see the pain that caused, and the fruitlessness and the failure and the accommodation that takes place, the adaptation. It's like the man on the street. I've talked to a lot of them, and a lot of them didn't have the tools, and that was tragic because they adapted. Something happened where they tried to say, "This is who I am. Accept me for this," and the world wasn't doing it, and they were posturing for fear, and the world rejects it. Incredible.
So I was going to say, so when you're feeling some inner struggle and conflict, and you're not at peace, and you're not happy, So you're supposed to ask yourself in that moment, I guess, am I coming
What am I
from
afraid-
love or fear, or
Right.
just
what
am I afraid of? What
Yeah,
am
if
I
you
afraid
feel
of?
uncomfortable, you're afraid, regardless of what it is. There's a
And
whole
what if you
list.
can't identify that? What if you can't identify what it is you're afraid of?
Usually you can, but if you can't, the next question is what, remember? Am I really going to die right now? Because that's what the subconscious is feeling. Look out, boy, we're going to die. You know what I mean? At some level it feels that. But if you consciously, am I really going to die right now? Pretty easy to probably say, well, no. Okay? And all of a sudden there's a whooshing of some of this anxiety. You know what I mean? And then you begin to think consciously. Because otherwise your subconscious is taken over and it's an irrational. I mean, most of the things that are inappropriate are irrational, aren't they, when you think about it? And that's because the system is shut down and you're functioning like a reptile. And we can't hold that person that accountable. We do socially and legally and what have you, but when a person's in fear, they do irrational things. But if you can say, hey, wait a minute, what is it that I'm afraid of? Am I really going to die? No. Then how can I go in the other direction? How can I embrace? How can I move to something? How can I contribute here? How can I be patient or kind?
Well, sometimes it's not, am I going to die here, but am I going to lose something that's important to me? You know, am I going to lose money or time or status or favor or
Then fear gets
energy?
back in there again.
Right,
so-
it does. It's
Yeah,
still in there.
yeah, right.
And so how do they answer that question? They may say, no, I'm not going to die, but I'm going to sure take it in the bank account. And they still feel that fear and that frustration and that upset.
Yeah. I guess it's going to the point where the bank account's not that important anymore.
Reaffirming what your mission
Yeah.
statement is to yourself and,
Yeah.
and what
Because
your
if you're on
purpose
purpose,
is.
the bank
Yeah.
account becomes less important. It's a convenience. It's a reflection of how well you're doing. It's a way of keeping score. But it's kind of like I kind of hate to get into some of this stuff, but you know, if a person gets behind in their bills, the creditor calls them a deadbeat and, you know, this kind of stuff, and that's painful. But you know, a long time I discovered that the company who's calling this person a deadbeat is probably 30, 60, 90 days overdue. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, the government, I mean, they can't
Where are
be
you
too
on the food
judgmental.
chain, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And so everybody's trying to collect. Everybody's coming out of a fear posture.
Yeah.
And I do know this, that if a person gets way behind in their bills, because I had some circumstances in my life one time where I was totally upside down. If you conduct your life in such a way where you eventually pay those people, you had better credit now than you had before. You know, and I've had people tell me, boy, you catch up and get back on track again, and people say, whoa, that's unusual. Because most people what?
Just,
Yeah, they bankrupt or
Yeah.
they try to avoid and hide.
yeah.
It's kind of like if you owe somebody some money, if you just call them. I've got someone in my life right now who is not able to pay their dues. Okay, they're just not able to. Several $100s involved, but every single month I get a little check. And I tell you, my regard for that person is way up there. You know, you just have to go along with someone who is that conscientious. And, well, it's that old accumulation we were talking about last week. Pretty soon it's going to be all taken care of. And boy,
Because
you
they're
have to admire that.
consistently doing it
Yeah,
every
yeah.
month. Yeah, that's
Just a little
important.
bit.
Well, you know, there's someone in my life who for the past 2 years has been afraid of facing some major decisions about their life and what's important to them and what they want really to have in their life. And they're even afraid to explore what it is they want or how to have it.
Oh, yeah.
And they say, I don't even know what I'm afraid of.
Right.
I don't know. How do you get past that?
They have to confront it and get some assistance. In other words, unless they're in counseling or accumulating data, it's not going to get any better.
So that's really interesting. How could you accumulate data?
Read, study, think, plan, go to seminars, essays.
So you're
mine
talking
certainly,
about
others.
you're talking about getting more information on a
Sure.
particular topic as opposed to accumulating.
Yeah, I have a
data
favorite
about
saying
them.
I do in seminars. I say, well, I can ask you. I mean, is there some facet of your life that could be working better?
Yeah, every one of
Yeah,
them.
yeah. and the thing is, it's not going to.
Yeah.
It's not going to get any better until you get more information. It's all about information. In other words, because if you had the information, guess what? It would already be better.
It's not only getting the information, but it's internalizing it to the point that you can actually apply it, where it becomes a part of you. Because I know that I've gone to lots of seminars and read books and heard tapes, and it was wow, great, pump me up. And then 3 days later, I'd totally forgotten it.
Well, if they were motivational seminars, that's what they tend to do. They're
Right,
cheerleaders,
right,
you know.
Right. Well, even if it was good information and I could see how it would really apply in my life, it tends to kind of go out unless you repeat it to
Oh, yeah.
yourself. You, as you were talking about previously, kinesthetically applying it. You know, if it's writing it or saying it or hearing it over and over again until
Exposing your mind to
Yeah,
it, because
yeah.
the mind will be exposed to other data that can be overwhelming if you're not careful.
your current thought patterns.
Sure,
And you're
yeah.
constantly reinforcing something.
It's like a person that says, well, yeah, I'm making affirmations now, you know. And I'll call them and I'll say, how you doing with the affirmations? Great. Well, what are you affirming? Well, I've got a couple that, you know, they're not really.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then they'll make one up and make a good affirmation. I'll say, okay, how many times did you say that yesterday? Oh, gee, lots. I said, yeah, but how many times do you think you said it? And they'll say 100, you know. I said, well, that's great, but what did you say the other 49,000?
All right.
900 times, because we think about that many thoughts a day. And I'll tell you, you know, you got to stay in command of these, because that's who you are. We're a sum total or an accumulation of all the thoughts that we think every day.
Well, maybe
and
that's
the thoughts we're exposed to
Yeah.
that we don't screen out, that other people are saying and doing. So we really got to get militantly adamant about what comes into our mind. We have the right to screen it all.
Maybe that's a
Yes,
good
ma'am.
place to start, is just with the affirmations.
Mhm.
Whatever I'm afraid of, I will discover.
Right?
Until you
I
can
will
discover it.
I tell you, I think
I
though,
know what I'm afraid of.
If you say,
I don't know.
what am I afraid of? Chances are you'll be able to figure it out. It's usually a loss of status, or being ignored, or not being loved. You know what I mean? Or being hurt in some way. Yeah, that's what you're afraid of. And it may be irrational. It may be irrational. Hey, I'm telling you, we're in trouble. These evenings and afternoons go by so quickly. We didn't even tell them last week that this was Life Talk. Kind of stuck those words together, and it's about life and living and making a living and a lot of loving. A lot of loving.
Absolutely.
Talk. Yeah. And my name is Byrne. And my last name is
Moses.
Moses. And you're Gina Fitt. And people can call us at, I'm just going to slip it in here, 800-661-3490. And if they call, we'll call back and we'll send gifts.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you, Byrne.